So we have a box here.
Original.
And this is the original too.
This is also original.
Already? Oh!
Hi, I'm Heinbach and it's good to have you back. My good friends from the Museo del Synth Marchigiano invited me again to Italy, and this time they had something special to show to me, the Crumar Spirit. This synthesizer was originally designed by none other than synthesizer legend Bob Moog, as well as Jim Scott and Tom Weir. It is one of the last big analog synthesizers of the 80s, before digital started to rule everything, and only a small number survive. My friends from the Museo teamed up with Crumar to bring this instrument back to life. They asked me to tell its story and to demo it, and I said, if I can have one. So in that regard, this video is sponsored.
It was January 2020 or February that I was here in Marche. We had a dinner together. They had some kind of a plan. Actually, they arrived there with a plan. They restored old instruments that they found, like prototypes for CRB electronic. They really did a good job. Because they have a pool of technicians. What they propose me, what if we will give you all the part that you're not skilled in, that is like the reverse engineering, make same circuits in 2020. Are you open to remake this instrument? And I said yes. Oh yeah, that is one of the three, I think, the prototypes of the new version of the Crumar Spirit. We decided to make three, so all of them tried all the features and this and that to be sure that it was working as it should. And now we voided the warranty.
4 screws.
Yes, 4 screws.
That's easy.
Yes.
Compared with other synthesizers where it's like 12 screws. Oh, it looks very clean.
We also changed a little bit to make more serviceable. All the trimmers are there, are here, so you can reach easily. In the original instrument, they were a few here, a few on this side, a few you have to open this, remove from this, all THT. So there are no SMD. All the integrated circuit are with sockets. Let's take a look at the original.
Just to say that this original looks completely new almost, right?
Because this was a new old stock. The information about these instruments are really poor. So we had to find one piece that was like the original. So that's the style of instrument from 1970. The main difference is that
they were using this cabling system.
These connectors, over time, they start to fail, right? All these white...
Yes.
Yeah.
Before coming here, we had to remove them all and clean them all. This is the oscillator's board. When we opened the instrument, those modifications were still there. And this is another thing. It is common. Back then, the costs of PCBs was very high. And this is actually a double side, single side. They probably made a mistake. And they decided, instead of remake everything, to fix them. Probably all instruments are like that. 2 pieces of leather. We use the same. We also put 2 pieces of leather.
That's very classic.
If you expose the keyboard of our new instrument, there's nothing there. Tensiometer, the sliders, and the modulation wheels and pitch bender was made point by point. Mm-hmm. We have a PCBs there. I called my friend there, Fatar, say, well, I have a very difficult and terrible question for you. There is an instrument we made 40 years ago, and we found inside a part with written Fatar and your code. Can you please check? Maybe you still have the mold, and after 10 seconds of silence, say, okay, we will check. So they went into the old factories, because in 40 years they moved, of course. They went in the old factory, they checked everywhere, and no, I'm sorry, we have no idea where is that, where is that mold. This research, things that I like. The company that is making the painting job and the silk screen in the new instrument is the same that made in the original. When I send them the files to produce the silk screen, after a few minutes I receive a phone call. Say, this sounds new to me, mm-hmm. But there is also something old. So they checked the report and they realized that in 1982 they were the same company painting and making the silk screen in the original one. Like the original one, this is completely made in Italy, completely.
I've got a show to play tonight here in Macerata, but they won't allow me to take this with me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some tape loops from this beautiful instrument using my little Nagra IS over here.
Considering a synthesizer like the Mini Moog or more modern Poly Moog, I don't found a particular resemblance of this. The Spirit was made in a different period using the famous CHEM by Curtis Electronic. Probably the designer want to exploit the last technology of that period by doing something totally different. Starting from the fact of creating the instrument identical to the original, I start from the service manual easily available on the net. Unfortunately, the same is not complete with some detail, perhaps this error made of purpose by Crumar to avoid a copy of this instrument by competitor, I suppose. I had to scan all PCB of original Spirit and draw the track to have the same exactly schematic of history. This last operation required considerable time, but at the end we got the exactly copy of the original instrument.
Said us that him, Moog and Jim Scott powered out their collective understanding of how they could advance the design and the musicality of a monophonic synthesizer during the design of the Crumar Spirit. fully convinced that the Crumar Spirit was the foundation for the Moog Voyager project almost 20 years later. Features like double modulation buses and a double filter make you think to similar features in Voyager that was actually the rebirth of analog synthesis in the new century.
Back in Berlin, and the Crumar Spirit is now with me. If you've ever played with an original Crumar Spirit, you will know that these don't feel nice. The knobs are meh, and the sliders are ugh, and the keyboard... I'm sorry, the keyboard of the original is very springy and it doesn't feel nice. That's all cured. The dials are smooth and the sliders slide nicely. And the keyboard is absolutely fine for a synthesizer. But what next to its history makes the Crumar Spirit special? If you go by the standard functions, it's a classic 2-oscillator monosynthesizer. You've got your master pitch here, you've got 2 oscillators, you've got a filter section with 2 filters that you can set as an overdrive filter, a band pass or a high pass. And then you've got 2 envelopes, one for the filter and one for the volume. And then it gets a little bit more complex. This is the audio mixer section, and you've got 2 paths. One is the filter path, which is standard as in any synthesizer. You route your oscillators to here, they go to the filter. But then there's the shaper Y path, and that's related to the shaper Y over here. This is a secondary output without the filters for the oscillators, the ring modulation, and the noise. It can be free running or it can be triggered by the keyboard. To make things even more complex, you can use the envelope shape that this generates to modulate the modulation. And that, combined with the 2 mod wheels, one for the modulation and one for the shaper intensity, and the pitch bend, makes the synthesizer such a playable instrument for complex patches. Crumar and the Museo del Synth Marchigiano went very original with this. You might argue a bit too much, because they kept the MIDI port that is not there.
They released MIDI on NAMM Show 1982, I think, with them too. Okay, so they heard about MIDI, Crumar. They heard about MIDI. In 1982, there was no internet, no information. There was absolutely nothing. They were talking another language. They were on the other side of the world. They didn't know what was happening in Japan, in United States, and blah blah blah. They only know there is something new. It's called MIDI. Well, this is a new instrument we are going to release in 1983. Let's add a hole with the MIDI. Now, when we know more, we decided what to do. Well, but the instrument was very unlucky. They made only few units, so they didn't think about let's invest money on making MIDI for Crumar Spirit.
So you've got no MIDI control over this. It's 100% old school because it relies on CV gate for pitch and timing information. The Spirit itself was the only Italian synthesizer that I know that uses CV gate. The DS2 had a gate but no CV. So these are players' instruments. Italian keyboardists were playing in dance bands. They were organists. So they were busy with their hands. They were keyboarders. And yeah, all this complex control that we now treasure wasn't a thing really in the mindset. At least that's my theory. And that is why you get not only one, but 2 foot pedal inputs to control the filter pitch and an oscillator. The Spirit, both old and new, work as CV gate keyboards. This synthesizer sounds to me both wild and controlled. You're able to precisely tune your sounds so they can fit into one big orchestral thing. The sad thing about the reissue is the same thing that is said about the original. There's only gonna be 100.
I can say now that we won't, after these 100, we won't make the Crumar Spirits anymore like the original. We don't know yet if we are going to make a Crumar Spirits with polyphonic spirits or digital one or software or rack mount, desktop. I can tell you the price in euro. It will be 3,090 and 990.
The used prices for the original are around 10k, so 4k seems like a bargain, especially since I really wouldn't want to play with an original Spirit anymore. It's just not mechanically valid, and I really don't trust vintage Italian synthesizers, and I've got quite a few and I love them, but the build quality leaves a lot to be desired. Good that this is now here. If you're on my Patreon, there's a big sound pack from this video with lots of sounds and loops from this lovely instrument, and much more, like bonus codes for my plugins and my music, and it's a nice place, so check it out. I want to thank Crumar and Museo del Synth Marchigiano for inviting me to play this instrument and putting it in my studio. This has been quite the journey. Thank you all for watching. If you have any more questions, do put them in the comments below or visit the subreddit. I'll be seeing you in the next one. Bye.
It's some kind also of a tribute to an era that was that era where Italy for synthesizer, musical instrument in general, really was the center of the world. If you can imagine that a company like Crumar, it was a big company, but a company like that was actually able in 1982 to call Bob Moog from the United States to come to Italy, develop and produce synthesizer. That's